build it, you demolish it. The legendary Homewrecker Burrito. Come build yours today with 20-plus fresh ingredients.
First online order, 10% off. Promo code ONLINE.
Welcome to the Mo's at Cameron Village. I'm Logan Ward for Over the Boards here, as always, with head coach Mike Gazzillo of the ACC-HL champion, Admiral Cup holder, Ice Pack. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, it's been a little bit since we saw you last time earlier this February, but some of the regular season games that have happened since we last talked: 9-2 win over Virginia, a 7-0 win over Richmond, a 7-1 win over UNC Wilmington, and a 2-0 win over Charlotte, who you then faced in the first round. How did those 4 games really help you warm up, getting ready for that ACC championship?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much had a feeling we would see Charlotte along the line. I know there was a little jumbling around of teams in the 6, 7, 8, 9 seed. But somehow we kind of figured we were going to see Charlotte in there. We figured UVA would be in the mix. Richmond and Wilmington were divisional games, so we needed the points. Actually, Charlotte was an ACC points game as well. Yeah. So all that stuff, everything had something to it that was leading us into that end-of-season tournament. So every game, there was something to play for. And
talking about that Charlotte game, you won 2-0, but then you followed that up, winning 16-0 in that first-round matchup against them. Just a couple of days before that in Charlotte, before you went out to Winston-Salem and then played them at the Annex. What was the big difference between those two games, really?
I mean, the 2-0 game, we were missing a couple of guys. Just illness, minor injuries. Their goaltending was great that game. I think we had 47 or 50 shots on goal. So he played really well. He kind of kept them in it. Still a good goaltender, but going into that ACC, I honestly, like Tim and I looked at one another at one point, and we didn't really see the 16-0 thing coming. I really don't know what to say as far as that one went.
But looking a little bit deeper into that, having so many goals scored from a lot of different players, especially some players that we hadn't seen much of earlier in the season, Alex Fong getting 2 goals alongside Ferrone as well, Miles Ferrone getting 2 goals of his own. What was it like seeing that everybody on all lines? What did that start really mean to the ACC tournament?
Well, I mean, it's important always to have depth. You can't rely on one line or 2 or 3 guys to get all your points. You need production from everybody. And, it's great to see when those guys go out and they get us rolling and get us started. They're all good players, and, they could all score in the league. And, some of them don't get a lot of opportunity, but when they do, they make the most of it. And, it was definitely good to have that in the first game.
And in that second matchup against Georgetown, the Hoyas, of course, put up a little bit more of a fight, a 5-2 win for you guys, but it was against a very much more physical team. They put up a little bit of a fight, tried to make a comeback at the end. What was that game, and how did you guys really come out on top in that one?
Georgetown, we knew, had been playing a lot better since we faced them at the Stephen Russell tournament in November. So we knew, and I told the guys, and this is, you could look back to last year and seasons before. The games get harder, right? So you're not taking anything away from the Friday game, but Saturday's going to be harder, and Sunday, if you want to win, it's going to be a tough game. I think Georgetown definitely was more physical. They were definitely a better team than we saw the last time, but I think the guys were really dialed in, and we just kind of stuck to the game plan, and they took care of business.
And how does it really impact, of course, seeing them earlier in the season against Stephen Russell in the Stephen Russell tournament? What's it like when you face that team again a little bit later in the season? You talked about how they had been playing better, but what did you really take away from that first game of the season going into the tournament in the second one?
I think they had a couple of guys that were not on the roster that for both times. So you look at that. there was also some incentive when we played them the first time because some of their guys were on Twitter or whatever that stuff is, and kind of saying they were going to run us out of the building, and so why would you do that? All it did was get the guys mad, and so they went out and they were on a mission. So that was just kind of a silly thing to do, From what I understand, I don't follow any of that, obviously.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, a couple of them were on it before that Saturday game. Again, not the best idea to give the team that's 10-0 a little ammunition, but everyone marches to their own beat, I guess, right?
And moving past that one, of course, with that win, moved into the championship round against Wake Forest, the host team, where you won 5-4 after rallying to a 5-1 lead. Gave up a little bit there, but still managed to hold out in the third period. No goals scored in a 5-4 win. Second ACCHL championship, the Admirals Cup in a row. What did that mean really to beat the host team there and getting out to that 5-1 lead? What was the mentality going through that game?
We kind of started to get away from some things that we had been working on or talking about towards the end of the first. It was a 1-1 game. We know Wake is a very good team. They're well coached. They're disciplined. It's going to come down to who wants it more. Again, now you got 40 minutes, not 60 minutes, right? Play with a sense of urgency now so that you don't have to do it later in the game. And we got, coming out, and, we got a couple, and, they called the timeout, and coming out of that, we scored, which gave us some incentive. There were a couple of bad breaks that we had that, enabled them to get some scoring opportunities. But overall, I thought we played well, and I thought we kind of got back on track. And the third game, the third period was, nothing, right? So it was definitely a little closer as far as, the pace of play. I do think we outshot them. I do think we had some better opportunities to score, but, they have good goaltending, and, again, they have some depth. So it was just a matter of just sticking to the game plan. Don't panic. Don't get ahead of yourselves. Just do what we do all the time, and it'll come out okay, and it did.
And, of course, Wake Forest, such a defensive team led by Cal Meyer in net there. They had they didn't take a lot of shots in their first two rounds, but you guys managed to stick to your game plan. What's it like when you come across a team that seems very well set to counter your offensive attack?
I kind of look at it as we've got four lines that can play, and I'm not worried about putting my fourth line against a lot of first lines. I'm not saying all, I'm just saying a lot. Same thing defensively. Tim mixes a little bit and matches a little bit more than I really have to. But, if you want to put your best guys out against, pick a line, well, I got somebody coming right after that. So how long can you handle that, right? So we do have depth. We do have speed. It is an advantage for us. We know Wake is just not going to quit, and then you just kind of look to see if, the tendency to just start leaving guys in the neutral zone so they can just kind of flip the puck out and, look to get a break, or, maybe if that breakaway isn't going to work, maybe our defense getting back will pull them down and cause us a penalty. There's all kinds of little things you can gather from just leaving guys trying to get them behind our D, but we recognized it pretty quick. And, we kept telling them, don't let them get behind you. Make sure you got five in front of you. And, guys did a real good job of that.
And talking about how everybody really contributed to that one, of course, Devon Halak winning MVP. Defenseman winning the award for the second year in a row from the Ice Pack. Of course, Eric Muro winning it last year. What does that mean for the team with Devon Halak winning that one? And what did you really think of his play throughout the tournament?
Yeah, Devon's had a great season. I put him up for the Defenseman of the Year award. He's not – I guess he doesn't have a lot of flash necessarily, but he's an extremely effective and a guy. He's got a great hockey IQ, and he's got a great demeanor. And, after the game, Mike came up to me and said, the Thunderbirds actually picked it. They said, hey, Thunderbirds picked Devon Halak as your MVP. What'd you think? And I said, I like it a lot. So I was very happy for him to get that.
Yes, he had a fantastic showing all season long, and really capping that off with the MVP, of course, an amazing award. But winning that second ACCHL tournament, of course, now winning in back-to-back years after trying for several times, having a couple of shots at the award in the past. What's it like finally managing to break through, now winning it in back-to-back years?
Yeah, it was it was nice last year to get that we had. I mean, honestly, when I look back over the years, there were a couple of times I thought we overachieved, if I'm being honest. There's one year that I really thought we had the better team, and I thought we should have won that game, but it didn't happen. But other than that, going in last year, we really felt we had, obviously, the undefeated season. The target on your back gets bigger. The panic sets in a little bit more in closer games. But we also had an advantage, and Tim had brought this out, whereby, we've played some difficult teams and we've played some close games. So we know what that feels like to be in there. We've been there with that. Don't know how much opportunity Wake had to kind of feel that, So I think we were able to work around it. But, yeah, getting that one last year was big. And then being able to follow it up, for the guys was just a great feeling.
And, of course, getting that historic win. Another historic event taking place at the tournament, the first women's hockey game in the ACCHL history. The Ice Pack, of course, putting forward a team against George Washington. Not the result you wanted, but still great to see them out there. What's that really like, and what does that mean for the future of the ACCHL and women's hockey?
Well, I mean, certainly we'd like to start a women's division. There are other schools that have teams. Navy's got a team. West Virginia had a team. I think there's one other school that had a team. There were some prior obligations that some of the teams had. So, playing on Saturday where we had hoped it would be a little bit more of a showing, it didn't quite pan out. But, the teams are there. The desire to get women's hockey at college level is there, and Emily Peterson's done a great job getting that organized, and she had a good game. I guess not the desired outcome, but still, it was a great game, and they got a lot of, I guess on Twitter, they got a lot of hits, whatever that means. I guess it's a good thing. Again, not a social media guy.
Yeah. Well, of course, a great showing, and hoping to see a lot more going forward from the organization. Is there anything really else that you want to see out of the ACCHL right now in terms of women's hockey, or do you think that it's moving forward at a good pace right now?
No, I mean, I think it's moving. I mean, if you look back, Mike Wally, the commissioner, and I were talking about it a bit. I think him and I think I was here a little bit before he was, but, we talked about, the progress of the league, and, there were early on just like 3 or 4 teams, and then everybody else was behind that, and then we've added teams, and then there was parity more, and so the league is growing, the teams are growing, the teams getting into the, regionals, right? I mean, you got 2 teams that behind Wake Forest that were ranked in the top 20. So you had Wake at 9, us at 4. I mean, so easily, a couple of other opponents away from possibly having 3 teams in that. So I think moving forward, the league's in a good place to do that. I think we're gonna try to push to get the women's. It's going to take a little while, because obviously there's some financial aspects to it that have to be overcome. But I think overall it's trending in the perfect direction.
And speaking of regionals, we'll be right back after this break. But we've got regionals action coming up next.
Build it, you demolish it. The legendary Homewrecker Burrito. Come build yours today with 20+ fresh ingredients.
First online order, 10% off. Promo code online.
And welcome back. Joined here by the Admirals Cup right now. Coach, your team's name has now been inscribed into it twice. What's the importance for the program now winning this twice?
Yeah, actually, NC State has won it 3 times. 2 of them, no, 4 of them. 3 of them won my first year, the past 2 years. And then prior to my arrival, they had won it once. So it's nice to see. I get to look at some of the names I recognize from when I coached my first tournament. I ran into some of those guys, oddly enough, recently. Eric Michlich and Mike Rieslin and Danny Fredenberg, and just great seeing those guys. Everybody's out doing well, and so it brings back good memories, I would say.
And, of course, the historic impact of this. Now having 4 lists of names on here from teams that you've coached. What's it like really just being able to look back and see all of those different players? What does it mean having that history in the program?
I mean, we've got some guys on there that have won Player of the Year and Defenseman of the Year and All-Star bids and just the Hall of Fame guys that have been out there. And so again, it's really good to see some of those names and guys getting recognition for. I mean, you want the team thing, right? But some of these guys deserve some individual accomplishments. And I mean, look at Sam and Luis from the year before. Getting into the Hall of Fame this year was a great honor for them, and so yeah, it's really good.
And we'll pass this back off right quick. Just get that back off camera. But looking forward now as we sit back down, settle back in here. Looking ahead to regionals a little bit, playing about 9 hours away from home, all the way up in New Jersey. Advancing in the postseason as a 4 seed, you have a familiar opponent. What's really the outlook going into that?
We're heading up on Friday. We don't play till Saturday, so we want to get up there early enough, get a good dinner, get a good rest. Don't know who we're playing.
Yeah.
If Wake Forest wins, I believe we would play them.
Yeah.
If not, I believe we're going to play Delaware or Rider. So Delaware we saw recently. Rider, we saw them in the tournament last year. We beat Delaware the 2 times that we played them earlier this year, but this is regionals and this is a whole different ball game, and so I fully expect it's going to be a very difficult team to play. And again, even Wake. I mean, we've seen each other enough. I'm pretty confident that they're going to come out and they're going to be ready to go. And I think if we play them, it's going to be a very close game again.
And we talked about the familiarity of those 3 teams in Delaware, in Wake Forest, and in Rider. Of course, playing Rider in last year's tournament. What's it like knowing all of those different teams? Does that give you any little bit of a heads up going into this, or?
Well, I mean, I guess we're pretty familiar with Wake Forest, right? So pretty much the same game plan that we had. Going into the end of season tournament with them, maybe a couple of nuances. We'll see how they come out early on, and then we'll kind of adjust from there. As far as Delaware, again, we saw them. The first game was close. The second game kind of got away. I would expect more of what we saw in the first game out of Delaware. So again, I would expect that to be a close game. And then Rider, I don't know exactly what they're about. I'm sure they're very good. They were a good team last year. They made it back. So, we'll expect another. I mean, I think they probably, have a little bit of a grudge to, we beat them last year, and they're not going to want that to happen 2 years in a row, right? So there's a little added incentive there for them.
Of course, Ryder trying to get revenge from that victory that you guys had en route to winning the tournament at regionals last season. Now, looking back on the season so far, regular season and the ACC tournament, of course, not losing since October after a great start to the season, 5-3 on the year, have not lost. What's it like taking that energy and trying to just keep the momentum rolling into this regional tournament?
It's oddly enough, it's not as difficult with this particular group as you would think. Again, Tim and I were talking about it, and he said, a lot of times coaches have to worry about going in and getting their guys psyched to play, and hey, you can do this kind of thing. We got to tone our guys down a little bit, because they are very they're not cocky about it, but they do have a confidence in their game, and in the team. So I think motivation is not going to be an issue for these guys.
And looking ahead, you already mentioned that first game is going to be on Saturday, February 29th, on Leap Day. Of course, you could be playing against Rider, Delaware, Wake Forest, or Xavier at this point, still up in the air, trying to figure out as the seeds settle down. But going to be playing against the second lowest remaining seed in that second round. But what's it like? You've still got a little bit of downtime. How's the team preparing right now?
Well, after the ACC tournament, we took Tuesday off, and then we had planned on practicing Thursday, but we had that snow event.
Yeah.
So we the rink called, and They were canceling some stuff. You want to be able to get your staff home safely and everything, and I didn't really want to put the guys on the road unnecessarily. So we're back tomorrow night, and we're back on the ice on Thursday night. So we'll, got a couple of things we want to work on going into it. Want to try to keep it light as far as the skate goes. Just make sure we get a couple of things that we want to get across to them. Try to have a little fun, and we'll just go from there.
And in a similar vein, March 1st is going to be that second round matchup should you advance. What's it like when you have such a turnaround time? Of course, you had that already in the ACC tournament, but playing on the next day after a very tough first round, what's that like, really trying to prepare games in between those two?
It pretty much what we tell the guys is if you want it, there's plenty of time to relax after it. We know what's at stake. We know there's no tomorrow if you lose.
Yeah.
So, the big thing is after the first game, just hydrating yourself right, eating right, getting the right rest, doing whatever you can personally to prepare yourself to let your body rest and recover, and then get out there with the guys. I think once they get to a point where they're out running around, doing their pregame, and then they get in the locker room and they get into it, I mean, they're all that other stuff is just out the window at that point.
Yeah, and of course, we talk about that mentality going into the tournament, as you just mentioned. But the game plan itself, of course, a very high-powered offensive attack, keeping things moving. How does that change at all going into this tournament, or does it mostly stay the same as you guys play your brand of hockey?
No, I mean, it's going to stay the same because you can't try to change everything right now, right? I mean, we've been doing something all year, and it's working. So why would I try to change it? Now, if during the game we pick things up and, we want to make some adjustments to what we're doing for one reason or another, I mean, that's fine. We do that during the course of the year. But as far as the overall game plan of, what we're trying to accomplish and how we want to forecheck and how we want to play defensive zone and stuff, none of that's going to change.
And, of course, only needing 2 wins right now in this upcoming tournament to make it to Nationals. Not to look ahead too far, but looking at Nationals, of course, making it all the way there last year, going 1-2 in Nationals. How did that translate from last season into this season?
Well, I mean, the guys wanted another shot at it, right? Yeah. Nobody really knows what to expect when you go to a tournament like that. I think the guys felt, maybe we had a little bit better team than we actually were able to show it at some points during that national tournament last year. Although, I mean, we're playing against top 16 teams in the country, right? So, it's a faster game. It's sometimes more physical than they're normally used to. The games go quick, believe it or not. And I think that since the majority of the guys on the team were there last year, I think we might be a little better prepared for what we're gonna experience going into it this year.
Yeah, and talking about that preparation for the Southeast Regionals this year, of course, we already talked about all the familiar faces, but is there a sense of urgency when it's coming up against single elimination against these higher caliber opponents?
Yeah, quite simply, that's what it is. It's you lose, you go home, right? And nobody really wants to do that. You come all this way. Nobody wants to just turn around and head back home. So, the big thing is someone's going to win 5 games or so and get themselves into that national championship. And I think the team that plays with the most sense of urgency, is the team that's going to – it's a combination of that and lack of mistakes, right? Because – mistakes can kind of kill you. Yeah. Even 1 or 2 at the wrong time, make a big difference in the game. So I think the idea is to just stay patient, play with that sense of urgency, and try to play as mistake-free as possible.
And, of course, playing regionals last year in Liberty, of course, knocking out the hosts there. Now moving into this one, how does last year's regionals experience as you played against Rider and Liberty en route to making it to Nationals, does that really impact anything this season, or is it all different because of the different teams?
No, I mean, it's different because of the different teams. It's different because the guys, last year was an unknown, and we proved that we can go out and do it. Beating Liberty early this year, I mean, that gave the guys a lot of incentive that they can go out and, we know we can compete at that level.
Yeah.
and I think the guys are, like I said, the core group of guys that were there last year and that going into this year, I think will have a big impact on the guys that are new and didn't have that experience.
And bring things back home really quick. A perfect record at home on the season, can officially say that now as opposed to last time. But what does it mean for the program to really just have that energy at home? Of course, drawing crowds every single time at the Raleigh Iceplex. What's it mean when you can play so well at home and have such a fan base really to back you up?
Yeah, I mean, the fans are incredible. The parents that travel with us to all these games, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, guys are lucky enough to be able to have their folks that are able to get there, or friends, or whatever. It makes it more fun to play, when you're playing in front of people like that. It's good for the program, for those that are applying to state that want to play. That they're probably hey, I want this major and I want this and I want that. I also want to play hockey.
Yeah.
So who's got what and who's got a competitive team that I can play on, and we can afford that. Some guys. Now with Live Barn and, PackTV and things like that,
yeah,
people that are applying to the schools have an opportunity to just see what we're about. Some people are able to come to some games, and see what, it's about. So I think being successful like that, whether you're home or on the road, and seeing the amount of people that you draw, I think that speaks volumes to those that are looking to come and play on the team.
And speaking about that, have several young players that have made an impact on this year's roster. Chris Solomon, of course, the Rookie of the Year, but having that mixture of players that haven't had that experience with you for those 4 years and having some vested veterans on the roster as well. How does that mixture of experience play into these tournaments?
I think the team has come a long way in having the upperclassmen being true leaders that the freshmen and sophomores can kind of look up to.
Yeah.
Basically, honestly, it started with Sam, and it took a little while with Sam and I to try to get that where we wanted it.
Yeah.
And then, now he's passed it to Ryan Kinney. And then, I don't know exactly who it's going to go to next year. But, the guys coming in don't know what to expect, right? So it's up to the seniors and the juniors to bring them in and say, this is the way we do things here.
Yeah.
And then as they get up into that role, then, again, you got new guys coming in that don't know what to expect, and they set the right example for it. And then it makes for a cohesive locker room. And, again, I've said, we may have real good goaltending and good scoring and great defense and all that, but a big part of what we do and why we do it so well is that camaraderie and that, that locker room and how tight it is.
And just as a last thing, before we wrap things up here, of course, the club team not funded by the school. We've got some fundraising going on, some gear from the team. What's it like getting that merchandise and the importance of getting the word out there?
Yeah, I mean, it is we do get some funding from the school. The guys, pay a fair amount to play. But, when you're, again, you start getting better, you start wanting better teams that want to play you.
Yep.
You want to travel to play. You want to give these guys a better experience. You want to play better ACHA teams so that you can rank. And it all costs money, right? And you have to have the practices and you have to, have the game time. And so, fundraising is a huge part of what we do. And whether it's merchandising or, being here at Moe's or, anything along the line, anything anyone wants to do to help out, believe me, it's appreciated more than you realize.
Well, thank you for joining us here today, Coach. That will do it for us here on Over the Boards. I'm Logan Ward on behalf of PackTV, as always joined by Mike Gazzillo, bringing you into the Pack.